Giving the go-ahead.
Yep, going to be exciting. So, this is the name of this game is just maintaining momentum, especially when they get their dash. This prologue, they're not going to have a dash, but when they do, they're just going to be shooting to stay as fast as they can. And right there, you can see acaroline starting. Shuyaz, he hasn't quite started yet. It's not that big of a deal in terms of real time. We're going to be going by in-game here, so focus on that more than the real time.
Yeah, you'll see that a lot of other races on speed gaming will go through the effort of making sure their streams are synced. But in this case, since the time does stop between levels, that's where syncing fluctuations can also happen. So it'll just happen. So
Yep.
You'll want to bear with us there.
Absolutely.
So far, a pretty flawless prologue from both sides.
Yep, no prologue deaths happens more often than not, and it looks like we're syncing up these streams, so not going to have to worry about the whole in-game time versus not right there. One thing to note that it looks like the timer there at the bottom for Shuyaz, it is using real time. Don't worry about that. Just look at the top left corner of his screen to look at that. And so starting off chapter 1 here, we're seeing them do all of those dashes, getting that quick momentum.
Yep. The main thing that you want to know, take note of, is the fact that the dash can go in all 8 directions, but what's most important is down forward. The down forward dash is what preserves your momentum, and that's more or less what's going to be used to effectively do most of the speed tricks in this game, including hyper dashes, wave bounces, and hyper extensions.
Yep, there Shuyaz trying to do a reverse hyper there. Doesn't quite get it, runs into some spikes, but just one of those many techniques that you'll see them doing. That reverse hyper, sort of hard to pull off, especially to maintain your dash after doing it. Right there. An example of an extended hyper keeps your dash so you're able to get that momentum as well as get a dash in the air. Mostly allows you to just get more speed. Acaroline just deciding to go on that zip block instead of doing a wave dash like Shuyaz did.
Yep. Which is to note that maybe in Chapter 1 and 2, a lot more, gung-ho strategies are going to be opted for by runners, but in this case, sometimes you just don't want to risk that. Sometimes you want to make sure that that the beginning of the game is safe. Meanwhile, Shuyaz, okay, he had a little bit of trouble with those neutral jumps, but ended up not doing too badly for himself there.
No, absolutely. It was a very close chapter 1 all the way through. Shuyaz with a small lead. Neutrals are harder than they look. The timing on it's pretty tight, and so just had a little bit of trouble there. Acaroline taking an early lead, but only by a few seconds.
Yeah, as we said, the race is going to be pretty close through these chapters that I'd say are pretty benign. Obviously, people will, in their first casual playthroughs, suffer a great many deaths in just about every chapter. But for more experienced players, Chapter 1 deaths are going to be a lot less common. Shuya is trying to go for a bit of a
I think
improv,
that there tried to go up to that middle block. I think that they should have gone to, there's a berry down there. That probably would have kept him alive, but instead tried to go directly up, and I think that maybe cost them a little bit, but still not too far behind, as Acaroline in that section there did take a death of her own, so definitely right now anyone's race.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that while you will at times want to opt for safer strategies, ultimately time losses don't amount to, well, it's hard to say that they don't amount to very much because, on one hand, you could say that even the biggest time loss is like maybe 1%, maybe less than 1% of the, what the time you expect to be. Honestly, don't expect a single time loss from a death to be more than, 3/4 of a minute. But at the same time, those do stack up. So that's the thing to be careful about, is that while a single death may not cost very much, dying multiple times in the same room because of, those death cycles is what racers are really going to need to watch out for here.
Yep, absolutely. Acaroline taking a tough death there on that section, allowing Shuyaz to catch back up only a couple seconds behind there, as they're both going to be in the same room. Right here is a very interesting part of this. Very important to get your spacing down. Looks like Acaroline got that. Shuyaz is going to be able to get it. Sort of. He's going to wait for all those battle lines to go. Some people do that strat, but then choose to go in between them. Shuyaz choosing to play it safe there.
Yeah, it's a minor time loss, especially well, but it's a minor time loss, especially in the face of just dying and having to repeat that entire room.
Yep, and this race is so close. Within about, I think, 2 seconds of each other. This is exactly what we expected from this race, is to keep it close. And then really chapter 3 is where, again, you sort of start to see some separation depending on, if they do get a loss. Some of those rooms are a lot longer than these. But so far, just as advertised through the first couple chapters, neither of them really getting, this is a really technical part of it. You're supposed to combine your hypers and do some bunny hops to maintain momentum.
Yeah, it can definitely throw some people off. You'll end up losing quite a bit of time if you don't really know what you're doing through that room. But what we have coming up next is more or less where the game really starts to separate, in terms of speedrunning, starts to separate the competent from the masterful. We have these cycles with these dust bunnies that are going to change quite a bit, and it's a lot to keep in mind.
Yep, absolutely. And with these, you're going to start to see these wave dashes and extended hypers to be very important, as that's going to be a major part of the strategy when we've seen it a few times before, but you're going to start to see it basically every single room. As a death there by Acaroline, that's going to sync them up. They are, again, this race is as close as it could be, especially since it looks like the timer's off by just about maybe a full second to a half second. It's neck and neck right now.
Yeah, it's such a little difference that you can't even really pay. You have to just not pay too much mind to it. Just they're close. They're really close.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see how they choose to do this room right here. Acaroline just doing one dash, a hyper. Both of them going through extremely quickly.
That was really nice from both sides. Oh my goodness!
They're both doing different strategies, but getting along these rooms very quickly. Both at the same.
That was.
Let's see who they both.
Oh, this is so exciting!
They both get it at the same time. They both get the key. Just a little bit of a wrong input there by Acaroline's gonna give Shuyaz maybe a tiny lead. But there's a death in, so Acaroline takes the lead.
Acaroline with a slight edge at this point. This room is also going to be in a bit of another, I guess, separation point, because much like the Awakes section of Chapter 2, this section, the huge mess, is where there's a lot of kind of technical moving around it. Acaroline accidentally...
That is one of the worst resets that could happen. That is... You just gotta feel bad, because there's... I swear, she was right there, probably pressed the talk button, just missed it, and that's a huge time loss for something that's... Oh, man.
It's Prime Day, right? Where's Alexa?
So Shuyaz
taking advantage of this, moving onward through the first section of the lake, the first leg of the lake mess, the big mess section. I was about to say lake skip. That's not quite happening yet, people.
Not yet. We'll get there soon, though. Acaroline getting through that section very quickly, so Shuyaz also keeping it up, trying to maintain his lead. A couple hypers to get through that room quickly. And what I think is interesting to see is Acaroline right now. Shuyaz might be doing... I don't want to say every single room is a little bit more flashy, but I think that Acaroline's going with a few of these safer strats here, which is probably pretty smart to just, in a race setting, get consistent times.
Acaroline is definitely going for more consistent things here, just to make sure that she doesn't, lose more time to this chapter than what had just happened there. Meanwhile, Shuyaz, definitely trying to go for some more stuff, because honestly, I think he's feeling himself here.
Absolutely, trying to do a wave dash there, or an extended dash, or no, it was a wave dash, excuse me, and then go right through those two dust bunnies, but just could not get it. So now we are synced up yet again. Acaroline coming back.
Shuyaz might have been getting a little bit ahead of himself in that room, which cost him some time that he had, perhaps unbeknownst to him, gained. And that's one interesting thing about it, is that they may be racing each other, but they're probably not really looking at each other's screens.
No, absolutely.
They really just have their own screens to focus on, so there are a lot of self-mind games involved in this.
Yep, you're worried about your own. There's too much going on in this speedrun to try to look over at your opponent's stream.
Shuya's back to having a slight advantage here. That might be about to change, but he does manage to
Has
play
to
a little
wait.
bit of improv.
Has to wait for that gem, but gets through it quickly. So acaroline taking a small lead back. Very impressed by this race so far. Both runners doing great, but acaroline looking to take a small lead going into this room. But it's really just one death away from a lead change.
My goodness, who is the Shuyaz guy? His movement so far has been looking amazing. You know, he's run into trouble as everyone does, but in a lot of situations, you've seen a lot of. I think we've seen a lot of things from Shuyaz that we would expect from.
Oh no!
Oh goodness!
Shuyaz accidentally doing so right there did the hypers. Most likely held off of his jump button just a little bit too much there. That made him hit the wall. So expected to do just one more jump to make sure that they had that key, and instead just bounced off right back to a dust bunny.
Well,
you
see what he did afterwards there. That was something that I don't quite see from people. Rather than going into the menu and retrying, after he grabbed the key, he dashed into the dust bunny. It counted, but that's not how most people do that.
No, depending on if you're already ready for the dust bunny, I guess it could be just as fast. But,
it might be just a matter of, like, you want to rely as little as you can on menuing, and you'd rather just kind of play it more smoothly like that. Probably not faster, but honestly, the difference is negligible.
Could have been an accident as well, but oh no, Shuyaz, I think probably wanted to do a right dash there, but instead did a upright. As acaroline going to this section, which is you're just gonna dash right all alongside this. And acaroline
bouncing on Oshiro quite a bit here. Is that her strategy so far for this phase?
Looks like it. Now this room, you're going to try to manipulate these cycles to help use them to your advantage. Oshiro's going to sort of telegraph to when he is going to dash towards you, but it can be very tough. As Shuyaz is here on this final room as acaroline goes through. Hopefully he can get this on his next try.
My goodness, was that close. Ooh.
Shuyaz with the clutch down dash right there to make sure Oshiro didn't get him. And it was on top of the button and everything. That's hard to control, but gets it as acaroline going into Chapter 4. Shuyaz about to join it, so there is an 18-second difference. That is very close. That's only a couple of a room's difference.
That's so much closer than what we've been seeing.
Absolutely. So we're going to see wind in this section, and that's going to really change things up. Makes your movement across these screens, depending on if it's pushing in your direction or against it, a lot harder. So it's going to be difficult to get any sort of momentum forward without hypers or dashes.
Yeah, whereas a lot of the other mechanics, such as dream blocks and zippers, have changed, indirectly how you play the game, wind affects how you play the game a lot more directly. Basically, it changes how your movement is as a whole.
Yep, and it completely changes how you would do rooms compared to without wind, which is sort of obvious, but at the same time, your strategies are different. And acaroline here going for a spike jump does get it second try. That's a pretty tough jump. It does mess up this strategy. See, second time as well. So if Shuyaz can get those clean, does have a few seconds of time save that they can get. Let's see if acaroline goes for the skip here. Going for it, gets it. Tough skip. Definitely pretty precise.
Yep. There definitely has become a bit of a gap between the players' races so far, but it's really not by much. And
no, there's some long rooms coming up.
It's a sort of lead that can be very quickly and easily lost.
Yep. And there, acaroline taking a death, and this is a long room, so if Shuyaz can play clean, only going to be a tad behind. I believe this is only one room behind. You
might be right.
It looks like
it's kind of hard to keep track with both of these screens. It's honestly a lot easier when they're further apart.
Very true. So Shuyaz looking to do maybe the vanilla strategy there, then decides against it, gets that, geez, I forget what it's called. You're just doing a dash off of a cloud, gives you more height, and gives you all that horizontal movement.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's really a technical term for it, but it is more or less a combination of hyperdash and taking advantage of the cloud.
Shuyaz there didn't get his extended hyper, so takes a small death there, but that's not a big one. So now here you're going to get into the heavy wind section for acaroline. Makes it almost impossible to move forward without using a dash or a hyper. So pretty much all of the movements are going to be based off of hypers or dashes. We also have these snowballs that you've seen before, but in this section, going to play a huge factor since it's a lot harder to sort of avoid those since this wind is so strong.
Yeah, Shuyaz also getting into that section, still not far behind at all. Depending on how well, let's take a. I want to take a quick look at how their PV splits are for the rest of the for this upcoming part of the race, because they've got a pretty neck and neck PV. On the other hand, Chapter 5 might be acaroline's chance to really pull ahead with a PV split differential of about 40 seconds. Then again, that could have been just, like a not so great temple for Shuyaz.
Yeah,
you really have to see.
We'll see. I have a feeling if you're having a not so great temple, it's usually in one section, and that's Theo. It can be very tough and actually cost a lot of time. Is acaroline gonna get through that at a 14:21? That's a pretty decent time. I wouldn't say that's the best Golden Ridge, but definitely on a great pace. Shuyaz not far behind on the final screen as well. Yeah, so we have a difference right now of 15 seconds. So
yeah, he was just about 2 rooms behind when acaroline finished, and those 2 rooms were pretty clean. So not really any lead lost in that regard.
No, and there's some rooms in here that take 15 seconds. So not too big of a lead. Acaroline does have a lead that if she just plays it safe, minimal deaths, you should expect her to stay in the lead. So right here, have a skip that saves a few seconds, or else you'd have to go to get the that red dash orb. So gets that first try.
Yeah, Chapter 5 definitely has, I would say Chapter 5 has the most in terms of developer-intended sequence breaks. There's a lot that you have to go around and do in in Chapter 5. And unlike in Chapter 2, where most of the stuff that you can go around and do is just berries that you can kind of disregard, Chapter 5 has a lot of keys laid out everywhere that the game at first expects you to do so you can unlock those blocks. But you'll find that from the speedrunning perspective, there are a lot of those situations that you can just kind of move past.
Yep, we just want to skip them like acaroline did right there with bubble skip. Normally would have you go grab a key, then go over there, but we don't even know where that key even is, so we're just
I'm sure the All Hearts players now.
Yeah, maybe. Shuyaz not far behind with that bubble skip, he gets it. And so we're going to get to the Seeker section of the game, where it really gets pretty interesting.
Yeah, the Seeker section is going to more or less bring back a mechanic from the Oshura section of Chapter 3, whereas, well, in this case, it's going to be a little bit different in that it's not just Oshura charging at you in a straight line from the left. Instead, these Seekers are going to be charging directly at you in wherever direction you are from wherever they are.
Yeah, absolutely. But like Oshira, we're going to try to use those to our advantage a little bit. We're going to try to get those to press some buttons that help us open doors up. We're going to try to do it to maybe build up some momentum, as acaroline uses that dash block to just zoom right there to the door. Same thing right there. Another piece of tech in this is just using those dash blocks, build up a lot of speed. We're going to see that later, especially one in the Theo section. Right there, acaroline just going right underneath. And also using that Seeker right there to press that button. Tough break right there, but not a small death. It's the very beginning of the room. Rather have one at the beginning of the room than the end.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. Definitely toward the end of these longer rooms, you're going to want to play it as safe as possible, and that's where those improv skills can definitely come into play. The ability to just make sure that you survive, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing at that point.
Yep, absolutely. And since this, one thing about Temple is it does have somewhat of tighter corridors. And that's a tough death by Caroline there, because that's gonna cost a few seconds. This is one of the longer rooms in this section, and that's gonna give Shuyaz probably about 10 seconds of time back.
Yeah, that's just provided that he can kind of make those things work on his own.
Yep, so just a room back right now. Granted, a very long room back, but still one room back. And so one thing I'm noticing is Shuya is going through this at a great pace, don't get me wrong, but acaroline, other than a few stumbles, is really getting through this section smoothly.
I honestly got to say, it's mostly just been big things that acaroline has been having some tough breaks on. When it comes to the small stuff, she's been pretty okay for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Has some great strats that really building up a lot of speed. Shuyaz there, he's going to get search skip. He gets that first try. Didn't touch on that when acaroline did it, but that's going to save you a good amount of time, a couple minutes, instead of finding 2 keys.
Yeah, that's another one of those any percent skips. Oh, Shuya is having a bit of some trouble with the Seeker here. This room's giving him some grief.
Yeah, absolutely. And at an unfortunate time, because could have saved a little bit of time, is acaroline's on this Theo section, so you're going to carry Theo around. You got the Seekers chasing you. You want to press buttons to open up a door. It's extremely tough, and you want to use those Seekers to your advantage as well as try to avoid them. So right there, acaroline's going to jump on top of one, then throw Theo to hit that button. Perfectly executed right there.
Yep. And this is another one of those sections that really, as I said before, that really differentiate the competent from the masterful. Because it's one thing to get through this area safe. It's another thing to get through this area fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Misses a small skip right there. Almost gets attacked by a Seeker, but that door saves him, or saves her in the brink of time.
She is getting quite a few close calls here.
Messes up there, but actually, I respect that that backup strat where instead of doing it the normal way, just realizes, okay, I'm going to dash up and dash against this button. Is acaroline's on the
Oh
final.
my goodness. She is avoiding it, getting another close call right there.
Yeah, just avoiding certain death all the way through this. Ooh, and that's a tough one. As acaroline's finishing up this section.
This did, to an extent, widen that gap between acaroline and Shuya's, but oh my goodness, this race is far from over.
That's definitely true. As they're probably about a minute away from each other, but at the same time, a minute's not too long. There's some really tough sections going up where if Shuyaz can play, consistently, I think that there's a chance that Shuyaz is going to go for that strat right there, a little bit riskier. Goes for it second time, does get it. As acaroline here, going to go on this feather section, so that's one of the few points in this room. Oh, lake skip, gets it first try. That's a tough skip. And yeah, this feather, one of the few sections of analog movement that we have in this game.
Shuya is just about finishing chapter 5, so definitely still not far behind at all.
And we're pretty much exactly 1 minute behind is where Shuyaz is at. So definitely if acaroline plays as consistently as that we know she can, it's her race to win. But especially in Celeste, there's nothing that you can take for granted. You've got to get your strats down. And Shuyaz, if he plays a great game, he can come back.
Yeah, so for now, those stage hazards and more gimmicky mechanics are gone. We have seen that Shuyaz does have that potential for very solid, clean play throughout the beginning of Chapter 6. Whether that serves him well as we get toward the end of Chapter 6, we've yet to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shuyaz deciding to not go for Lake Skip, probably pretty smart there. Lake Skip does save about 4 seconds, but at the same time, it's one of the tougher skips that you'll see runners do. So right here, we'll see which route acaroline there decides to go in the top route. This is one thing with Reflection is it does have diverging routes and rooms. Generally, speedrunners will go into one specific route. acaroline taking the bottom route, which is consistently the one that's most used. Gets through that room with ease. and deciding to go to the top room. This is pretty much agreed upon to be um, the most used strat.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Although acaroline here going to the bottom, that's not necessarily the most common room, or at least going up there isn't uncommon.
Yeah, to my understanding, there's not a huge difference. If there is, it's pretty small. So it's mostly up to a matter of preference, and just it tends to be that the majority of the community prefers one over the other in those situations.
Yep, absolutely. Whichever one you can get more consistent with. So Shuyaz not far behind. Deciding to... Oh, I actually just missed the dash. I thought it was deciding to go to the lower route, but no. And so acaroline, about halfway through this beginning portion of it. Really, that's halfway through the beginning. It's about a quarter way through the level. Maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, this level can be pretty long, and it can feel really long, especially toward the end.
Acaroline here going for a skip. Right here, it's a little bit risky because you don't have a checkpoint if you fail, but she gets it first try. Easy.
Yeah, she is picking up a little bit of grief from those bumpers, which certainly makes sense. Except to the like super experienced racers, those the behavior of those bumpers can really feel erratic.
I mean, I've seen some of the top racers complain about those, so I think it's just everybody.
Yeah.
So acaroline here going for a big skip. Gonna get it. Was at the very beginning, so not going to get as much momentum, but that still saves time compared to just doing a normal dash in there. We'll see if Shuyaz goes for that full skip there.
Oh, a good save from Shuyaz.
And so we have this battle line section, so she's going to be throwing beams at you, and then these little orbs that will, kill you. And they're going to try to avoid those. So one thing about this that you'll want to notice is that they're going to try to go on a specific pattern. That way they know that they're safe. But if they do miss it, it can really make things interesting. Usually results in death. So we'll have to see if they have good backup strats or can do it consistently.
Yeah, she is going ahead and opting for a safer third section of that one room. Because you really do have to cut it close, and in a situation like this, sometimes you just want to be like, let me just get through the room.
Yep, don't blame him. Let's see if he can get this battle line skip. Oh, no. He's going to hit off of that.
Yeah.
So acaroline here has a pretty big lead, at least relatively. Doesn't mean that it's a guaranteed win, but about a minute ahead.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more.
Even with this level about, perhaps, well, I would say about to be in the books, but honestly, it's still hardly over.
I mean, if you think about 3,000, 1,500, and then 3,000 meters, there's just some sections on there. If you die, you lose 10, 15 seconds at the very end.
Yeah, this run, I would say, still has about a third of a run to go here.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though there's a big lead for acaroline, definitely not over yet.
And even still, I imagine Shuyaz, while Shuyaz would certainly like to take another victory, I think he might be a little bit more concerned with the whole self-improvement aspect of this tournament.
Yeah, and I think that's
because we've seen a lot of it so far.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of PBs. That's really the name of the game in this tournament. Just a lot of people getting better. You love to see it. So hopefully we can get a PB or two in this race as well. So.
Yeah, it's ultimately what to expect when you have an any percent tournament of a new game, well, a relatively new game that a lot of people have been speedrunning.
Yeah, absolutely. So acaroline here.
She just barely catches that laser.
Rough.
That barely looked like it hit.
As acaroline finishes up the battle line section. Nice pace for her. She's going to finish this up at about 27 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. That's going to be just a little bit ahead of her PB pace. In her PB, she finished Chapter 6 at a 26:48 and is going to finish this looks like about 10 seconds after that. So PB definitely not out of range for her. So watch out for that as she's going to head to the summit, which is again by far the longest section of this game.
Yeah, Shuyaz, on the other hand, just about halfway through the battle end section of the of Chapter 6. So he's got a bit of a ways to go, but I would not go so far as to call this lead insurmountable.
Absolutely not. Especially in the summit, there's no room that's a gimme. You have to fight for each and every room that you get through. So Caroline battling a 37.53, so has a little bit more than 10 minutes to get through this at her PB pace, that or at her skill level. That's something that it's definitely challenging to get, but I think that she can do that.
Yeah, you're going to want to watch out for a mid to low 34, perhaps mid to high, somewhere in the middle range of 34 minutes by the time she gets to 3000 M. For for a PB, for another PB to watch out for here.
Yep, and tough death right there for Shuyaz. This battle line section is just very easy to get one of those deaths that feel very frustrating. Second time in a row, the same thing. There's just so many ways that make it really easy to die at. So definitely frustrating, but it's sort of how this game was designed to punish you for making small mistakes.
Yeah, that can definitely be a problem there, but Shuyaz does manage to get finished with Chapter 6.
Caroline messes up a little bit at the beginning of this room, but not too big of a time loss there. Was in the first section of this. We're going to go to the 1,000-meter section. So basically, we're revisiting each chapter as we go through the summit. This is revisiting Chapter 2, so we see Dream Blocks again.
Yeah.
As Shuyaz finishing up his Chapter 6. He is at a 29:07, so at one point was pretty close to a PB, but since failing those last two battle line sections actually pushed him back a little bit to where he's about a minute off of his PB pace. So a decent run, but probably pretty frustrated that couldn't keep that PB pace going.
Yeah, it's still one of those runs that you just got to push yourself to finish, because it's practice here, especially with the last section. You really don't want to cheese yourself out of the opportunity to practice Chapter 7.
Yeah, absolutely. And Caroline going through that 1,000-meter section like it's no issue. So they're going to go to that 1,500-meter section, which, in my humble opinion, hardest part of the run. Some think it's 3,000 meters. I say they're wrong, but either way, both of them are very tough. Let's see how she does in this.
Yeah, the whole chapter gets to be pretty expecting of you.
Yeah, especially if you're starting to go on those death cycles, it can be tough. This room in particular that Caroline's at, I think, is one of the tougher ones. Let's see if she can get through this.
Yeah, those cycles can be pretty challenging.
Does get it, as Shuyaz here. Yeah, that again, beginning of the room. If you're gonna take a death, you'll probably take that one. Caroline deciding to go on a little bit of a safer strategy compared to what a lot of runners do. Shuyaz as well, taking a little bit safe through here in the 500-meter section.
Yeah, ultimately, Shuyaz might be able to gain some time on Caroline. Mostly, it just depends on how much Shuyaz has been practicing Chapter 7. I know it's a common pitfall for less experienced runners to avoid practicing the latter parts of the game because it can be that hard, but it's really what makes it all that more important to stay vigilant and practice those areas.
Absolutely. Also, it being the longest section sort of makes it more inconsistent. You have your longest splits there, so it can definitely be a lot easier to have some parts of this section that you're just not quite as good at. So Caroline here on the 2,000-meter section, going along this at a pretty decent pace. We haven't seen some deaths, but I don't think we've seen any major ones so far this summit.
No, I don't think so. There haven't been too many opportunities for those major deaths, but where there have been, acaroline has pretty easily maneuvered through them.
Gets that auto-scroller skip there, so that's a big one. That's one that you do not want to die on, especially when you're on a PB pace like she is right now.
Yeah, auto-scrollers are really a large part of Chapter 4 and as well as the Chapter 4 section of Chapter 7.
And shuyaz here, he's on the 1500 meters, so perhaps if he can have a good 1500 meters, maybe he'll get back on PB pace himself.
Yeah, it'd be hard. It'd be really hard to stand up to how acaroline's doing so far. She's been having a great run of things in this chapter so far.
Yeah, very consistent. Not much time lost. Gonna be around. It looks actually. I'll wait 10 seconds before I say what I'm gonna say. Okay, yes. Getting through this section below 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That is a very good pace for most runners. So going to the 2500 meter section, this is where we're gonna see some very flashy skips if she decides to go for them.
It really depends. It really depends on how she's feeling about the run so far.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a tough. Shuyaz there going through that 1500 meter section like it's no problem. So he might be on another good pace as well. Gonna go for a key skip here. Let's see if they can get it. This is 2 consecutive wall spike jumps. There we go. That was 3rd or 4th try, so not too much time lost there.
Yeah, and more importantly, no deaths in any of them, which the dying to those spikes while trying to jump past them can waste a lot more time than just, you know, failing the spike jump, I believe.
Yep, because you have to wait for that death animation, which takes a second in itself. So you can press A to make it go faster, but it still takes a little bit of time. Let's see if we go for door skip. We are going to go. It gets number 1. Let's see if we get the second one. Gets both of them. First try. Not a problem.
Yeah. Acaroline doing a pretty good job of just about all the skips in Chapter 5.
Yeah, it had one. I believe it was 1 death, maybe 2 deaths. Really no issue there at all.
Really don't want to speak too soon when it comes to this last auto-scroller, though.
Yeah, so gonna go sub 34 before going into that 3000 meter section. So she's actually ahead of what her PB pace is. So that had to have been a very good, 0 to 2500 meter section for her.
Yeah, that's a sub 34 3000M.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So a little bit of a stumble there. Shuyaz getting through this section. He's not having too many troubles himself.
Yeah, honestly, so far, a rather clean Chapter 7 so far from both racers, which is, honestly, on PB attempts, not something you get to say very often, and it's something you really have to relish the opportunity to say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing that I almost think that since it's such a long section, it's better to be really good at Chapter 7 than it is maybe to have a sort of a poor tempo. If you can get a, 10, 11 minute Chapter 7, that's probably better than getting a... Man, I'm not very good at knowing the paces of Chapter 6, but it's just one of those where it's probably better to practice that than it might be to get some small efficiencies on, the first few chapters.
Yeah. We see that as acaroline is getting to, well, basically the kind of the midpoint of the 3000M section, we do see that the wind is back to change, like the core movement mechanics, and we see kind of an example there of sometimes you just gotta hit that retry button to save a little bit more time to falling to your death.
Yep, absolutely. That's a big thing as well, is knowing when you're going to die. Shuyaz getting that key skip, but yeah, just you're going to die in Celeste. Getting a deathless is something that it could happen.
Well, first of all, it shouldn't happen in any percent run because one of those deaths is intentional.
Fair. I think that there's at least one. I think it's 2 there's a couple intentional deaths, but even not including those, it's very rare to get a deathless run. So it's very important to know when you should reset or just get that natural kill. Shuyaz going for door skip himself. Let's see if he gets it. First door is good. Second door is also good. So we have 2 door skips, both first try. Fantastic, as acaroline is on flag 10. Or did I read that right? Yes, I did.
I
I
can,
did.
I can barely see and remember right now. I'm just in awe at
She's on a
Carolyn's
fantastic
performance
pace so far with flag 7. So her PB 37.53. So it's definitely going to be close. These final few flags here are some of the longer ones. So she's going to have to keep that pace up if she wants to get it. And so Shuyaz is about 30 seconds above his PB when he's was going into this. However, if he can keep it clean, we might see him PB as well.
Yeah, it'll be close. It may not be so close for Carolyn.
Okay, so death right there. 3 flags to go. Not a big deal. That death's also not.
A very.
You'd rather it happen there
I would
than
call it
later.
a safe death. Maybe that one not so much. Oh, I don't panic. Come on, you got this.
It's going to be very close. A couple more dashes. Got it. So we have 2 more to go. So remember, that PB is 37.53. So if it can get these final flags clean, we should see it. But nothing's for granted. So 1 more. We should see a PB barring... very close to those spikes there.
Yeah.
That scared me a little bit.
Oh, don't. Ooh.
A few more spikes should be safe. Do not retry. And that's going to be a PB 37.33.
Congratulations.
GG's.
A 37-33 for A. Carolyn.
Absolutely
Very well
impressive.
done.
That is fantastic. As Shuyaz himself, his PB 39.34. So while he's not going to get the win in this match, going to try to get, another sub 40, which is a very great time. 15 flags to go, and has a minute and a half to do it. So would have to do it extremely quickly. It's possible, but it would be very hard.
Yeah, let's not count him out just yet, though. The last time I said something like that, we had 3 PBs out of 4.
Oh, that is very true.
He's going for some of those tougher strats. Honestly, kudos to him for giving it a shot.
I think he knows that he's on PB pace and wants to try to get there. Again, about a minute, a little bit less than a minute to get through these 10 flags. So possible, but it's going to be very close. And at the very minimum, hopefully we see a sub 40, which is a great time.
Yeah.
Okay, would have to get through this in about 30 seconds. I do not believe that is possible, but
it may be out of reach at this point.
Still can see that sub 40 going through these final 4 flags. Yeah, so that PB definitely out of range here. Is this flag in itself is going to take about 10 seconds, even if you do it quickly. But still, that 30 seconds. Can we see a sub 40?
That's going to be pretty difficult. We'll see.
So has about 11 seconds to get up here. It's going to be close. Oh, tough death. Still going to be a great time. But just
gets a little bit greedy. Honestly, though, why not?
Yeah, I don't blame him. Already, it's important to get a good time in this tournament since it does affect your seeding if you do make it to the brackets. But at the same time, hey, why not shoot for that sub 40? But a 40.07, I'm sure they'll be happy with that. 2 fantastic races. That was close for a long time. Shuyaz maybe not having the best reflection that they would have hoped for, but all in all, a couple great races.
And my goodness, did they give us a show through Chapter 3.
Yeah,
that's when I thought, oh yeah, Chapter 3. That's where we're going to see a bit of a gap. Not quite. No, no,
absolutely not. They put on a great show throughout the entire one. A Caroline getting that PB. Shuyaz, I think that just a couple of deaths in reflection away from getting a PB of his own. So
honestly, still a run to be very proud of. especially for
Yeah, absolutely.
especially for we have established that shuyaz isn't is somewhat new to running this game, or perhaps
Yeah, at least wasn't part of so didn't have a speedrun.com speedrun submitted before this tournament, was really sort of an unknown, but has come into his own, has that win, but 2 losses since then, but still putting up good times. Anything near a 40-minute time is very good, so it'll be interesting to see how these runners do going forward.
Yep. Well, I believe that's going to do it for us today. We hope you've had a great day of watching runs. Unfortunately, we have no more for you this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Although we do have Shuyaz here. Let's see if we can, just fit in a couple questions in this for an interview here.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. So, pretty good run for you. It looked like you were pretty close to a PB.
Yeah, I was. It's kind of disappointing because like the resort was so bad, and Mirror Temple wasn't great either.
It looked like your I think you had 2 deaths on the final battle line screen as well. Just a couple mistakes away where it would have just cut off like 30 seconds on that run.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I didn't have the screen up to watch the race. Like usually I know if I'm like ahead or behind, but I was just like trying to focus. And I thought it was gonna be super close. I didn't realize I was like 3 minutes behind, which is like.
Well, you were right for quite a bit.
Yeah, it was very close up until the end of Reflection. It was.
That sounds about right. I had some very stupid deaths in the battle and fight, and I don't really know what happened. Like, I think it's the last screen for battling.
Yeah, it was the last screen.
Coming out of one of the feathers, I just like died 3 or 4 times and lost like 20 seconds each time. But yeah, I got a gold 3,000 meters though. That was pretty neat. I guess that's not a real IL, but it's one of my splits. So yeah, so that was nice.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, GG's to Caroline. We'll see how it goes the rest of the pool.
When do you have your next race coming up? Do you have one scheduled?
I have a couple scheduled. I have Saturday morning against. I'm sorry, I scheduled like 3 races. I don't know who was who, but I have one Saturday morning, one in a couple weeks, and one Wednesday night, assuming Sneaky figures out his stream stuff, because you said he was having issues with it.
I see. Well, good luck on those. Have taken a couple losses after your initial win, but you definitely have a time that can, get a couple wins. So I wish you luck going into that bracket stage. Yeah. Anything else about your run that you wanted to say?
No, not really. But thank you. I think that I have I just got into running this game in the last few weeks, and I feel like I have like a shot to upset somebody and maybe get out of pools. So we'll see.
I think that you do. That's very anything where you have a sub 40. This one it wasn't. It was a 40-minute something, 40:07 I believe. That's very impressive, especially for just a few weeks. So I think that you have a real shot in getting to that brackets, and I'll be rooting for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So as Maple said, that's going to be doing it for us. I'm Shredberg. That was Maple.
This is Maple.
Yep. So that's going to do it for our Celeste runs tonight. We have, I believe, 10 runs tomorrow.
We've got a lot.
There's going to be
speedrunning content for you tomorrow and the next day.
And all throughout the month heading into early August. So make sure to check out those. Make sure to follow the runners. They put on a great show for us, and I'm sure that they put on a great show when they're just solo streaming as well, so I'm sure that they would appreciate that. But that's going to do it for us. Thanks, Shuyaz, for coming in for this interview, and thanks, Maple, for co-commentating.
Have a great night.
Yep, that's going to do it for us. Good night, everyone.